Hi, I hope you're doing well. I'd like to talk to you about something that I consider to be important that I teach during the trainings, but isn't necessarily in the manual, and that's the concept of change itself. We're in the business of change, and whether we're talking about a physical change like our health, business change, financial goals, a software update for our computer, moving house, birth of a new child or death of an older relative, etc., etc. Life is full of changes, absolutely full of changes. And so it's good to be able to embrace that and to have the skills to recognize when those moments start to arise so that we can embrace them and move through them in the most positive way. And the model change involves a movement from being completely happy with where you're at to being something needs to change, and then there being a sort of I wish it was like it was, when if I could just get back to eventually, having exhausted those possibilities, arrive at the position of kind of stuck no options, if you like. And that's when somebody usually arrives at my door. That's when someone will usually pick up the phone or email me and ask if I can help them, literally, to move forwards from that spot. And then we find ways to do that, and we engage with that using all the techniques available to us, and then the person arrives at their new destination or point of departure, depending on which way you look at it. So it's a very, very simple, globally applicable model. And it kind of goes like this. So I'm going along in life, and I'm in position A. Everything's cool. Everything's how I want it to be. Let me see. My phone is working, everything's good, and the app is fine, everything's working. And then there's a software update. So I might not have expected the software update, but hey, I update the app. And I find out that certain things that I thought were great about the app are no longer there, or it's been completely rearranged and the menu system's been arranged in a different way and I'm not used to it, and maybe I'm a bit frustrated about the whole thing. And I go online and I see lots of other people, jumping on it and shouting off about, why they don't like it, and all sign a petition, whatever, to try and, pressure the company into winding it back to how it used to be. But it can't, and it's not going to. And then after a while, people realise that that's not going to happen. So while they were doing that, they were being less resourceful than they were before, in terms of their mental resourcefulness. But finally, they arrive at the point where they stop trying to make the app like it used to be. Why can't it be like it was before? And they stop protesting, signing and all those things, and they finally accepted that this is how it's going to be. And so, meanwhile, of course, they've been using the app, and what they've probably found out is that there were really good reasons for changing the app. And during that time, even though I might have been protesting about the thing on the various website forums or whatever, I've arrived at the conclusion that actually it was a good thing. And so I arrive at point D. And I embrace it, and I get used to it. So I'm at A1. Now, put into a different context, I worked in an industry that I was quite reasonably well known and respected in, and I was happy with what I did. I was very good at what I did, and I was quite satisfied with it. Until I had a conversation with someone else who was ahead of me in the game, and as a result of that conversation, I thought to myself, I don't want to be like that in 5 years' time. I don't want to be the person that's so busy that they're never at home. which was what was happening for that person. At that point, when I decided I don't want to be like that, I've arrived at position B already. And because I don't want to ever be like that, but that is actually the progression for the work that I was doing, I would never be comfortable and satisfied in the way that I used to be with the job. And the excitement of mixing with all the people that I was mixing with, which were, very interested people, very nice people to work with. And all of that, it was all very exciting, but now it wasn't. Now it was a task. And it was for money. And no matter how I thought about it, I couldn't get back to how it used to be. And so I became more and more unresourceful about the work that I was doing. I was still good at it, I was still able to excel at the job, but I just couldn't find it in me to want to do this long term anymore. I tried everything I could think of to try and make it like it used to be again, and it didn't work. And so I arrived one day, I'd struck no options. And finally, I'd run out of ideas. The reason why this was happening was because there were other things that I'd decided to do way before all of this. And I was doing them until this took over. And I'd kind of forgotten my path. And I deleted information, and I wasn't attending to information in my mind that would have reminded me that I was diverting away from the pathway that I designed for myself, until this crisis point came along, and then it started to become information that at first I didn't know what it was, but whatever it was I was feeling uncomfortable about. But once I'd spent some time down here and I gave up trying to make it like that, I started to remember what I'd actually been trying to achieve when I set out on the path that led me to all of this experience. As wonderful as it was not my path. And so I came up with the plan. What do I actually want then? This is where I am, this is point A on the map. Where is point B on the map? And as I identified where point B on the map was to make a course correction, I started to remember why that was where I was trying to get to. And I started to remember the ways that I'd been employing myself and my skills and my thoughts towards achieving what I wanted to in my life. I started to undelete the information. In other words, it started to become available to me. And I started to undistort my view of where I was going. And I became really resourceful again. In fact, more resourceful than I'd been before. And I made a course correction that was quite a significant course correction, and I arrived at the very place that I was determined to be at. But of course, what will that do for you and what will that allow you to achieve is always a question, because you're always at point A on the map. You're always wondering where point B is on the map. And the attempt is to stay inside a vector of change. And once I regained myself into the vector of change that was appropriate for me, I was fully resourceful and I achieved it. Of course, I moved on after that point. And there comes another point further on where it's great, I got to all this, but I want more. The idea over time is that life is a sequence of loss and gain, but that the overall direction is an upward trajectory because I'm in alignment with the direction that I'm going in. What I want and what I'm getting are in alignment with each other, and therefore I'm happy to accept the loss, for example, of a fantastic career. It was a very lucrative career, very enjoyable in many respects. I do miss it still, but it wasn't my career. So I had to lose that career, and I lost finance. There was a lot of loss involved in jumping to where I actually wanted to be. But in jumping to there, I ended up financially better off than I used to be, and to this day as excited about my work as the very first day, nearly 30 years ago. However, there have been significant changes since that point of recorrection, and I embrace each one of them because I know it takes me higher. So this is the universal model of change, and we have skills in NLP, hypnosis and so on that apply to all of the stages along the way, so that we can help not just ourselves but help our clients to achieve the changes that they want to achieve, and to see what they're doing as a positive thing. If someone's left their partner, for example, it could seem like a very negative thing on the surface of it. You know, oh, how will everyone see me, and is it a failure, to all the usual things people say. But actually, if it's not right, the positive thing is to engage with that and to go through the change. Or or I'm made redundant. In that case, there would be no choice over leaving the job. And what am I going to do? You know, maybe my entire field has been replaced by AI. I mean, this is coming. And there simply isn't. And so I'm going to have to do something different. Well, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. That's when people end up, try everything, and then they end up down here, which I call stuck no options. And the reason I call it that is because they've tried all their options, and they've run out of ideas. So they've tried to go back this way. If only I could get it back to. And eventually, instead of looking backwards in time, they start to look forwards in time instead. Okay, so it is like this. What do I want instead? And the moment that happens, someone stops orientating towards the past and orientates towards the future instead. And that's when they can become aware of the resources that are applicable to achieving that future vision, which wouldn't have been applicable to trying to get back to the old position in the past. So in conclusion, this is kind of like a graph whereby this direction is time, and this direction is kind of psychological resourcefulness. I'll just write resourcefulness. So if people go on, they become less resourceful at first, then they orientate towards the future and become more resourceful again and move on. This is an ideal version of the universal change. Obviously, if someone was made redundant, came down here, stuck no options, this is it, then they're not going to recover. And so they actually stay down at this level and maybe even lose other things like their health or something like that afterwards, and downwards. So it's a different version. Or they may only go back to a level that they had been at before because they're trying to recreate. And so it's kind of like almost like a loop. So they don't actually progress further. This is the ideal, that they actually progress and become more whole than they were before. And so on and so forth. So this is the universal model of change, and I think it's very important to consider that all changes involve loss and gain. And the one thing that's certain is nothing stays the same. Nothing stays the same. So you will be changing, everyone changes, businesses change. Look at businesses that didn't change. Who owns a BlackBerry anymore? Nobody, right? Because they didn't change. Businesses need to think about the model of change. So that as this starts to happen, they're coming up with new product, new things to kind of ride the market into the new position that they're going for. So it's very, very universal. It's an individual thing, it's a business thing, it's a community or even bigger chunk of information. It could be a nation or whatever. I suppose people in government are trying to make changes happen, for example, in the health service to make it a better health service. That's the idea, right? So a very, very universal model of change, very simple to understand, but it's useful sometimes to explain it with clients so that they get the idea of where they are in the process themselves, and that helps them to feel like they understand what's happening to them. I hope it's been useful to you. If you want to know more about all this, I teach it in great depth. You can look at the contact details in the comments section below this video. Feel free to get in touch with me. Calls are free. I'll pick up a call and talk to you. If you want the trainings are very, very thorough. Very, very thorough. And they give you all the skills you need to be able to navigate through your own life.